Hello YouTube, welcome to a new weekend market analysis. We're going to be talking about the Dow Jones Industrial Average Futures, Bitcoin, and silver. Specifically, we're looking at the silver futures contract, okay? As always, guys, make sure to hit that like, subscribe. Your support is what makes all this analysis videos possible, and use code PABT for the best prop firm discounts. You can see all the companies you can get the best prices at the top of the screen with the current sales that they have going. So let's start off with the Dow Jones and let's go into the weekly chart, top-down analysis as always. So just like all the other indices, ES, NASDAQ, we had a pretty large pullback week. In this case with the Dow, you can see we are now back testing this previous area of all-time high breakout 2 weeks ago, and now we're back testing this breakout support area. If we go into the daily, here we can see in more detail, we've now established some pretty clear areas on the daily chart of support resistance. Upside 54,149, very big consolidation here. That was tested last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single day. We ended up putting in a resistance there. Friday, we started the breakdown. And then this week, Monday, Tuesday, we just started off bearish right away. Back tested this previous all-time high area and this breakout zone. And then Thursday, we ended up just clearly breaking structure to the downside on this candle. We did retest the 50 daily moving average here on Thursday, Friday, and we did get a nice reaction Friday back. But look at this, we're pretty much just back testing this daily level as resistance from the downside. So now going into next week, very, very key if we can break back above this 53,420 area. Downside, if we break below the 50 moving average and the lows from this week, then I think it's going to be a pretty quick move into the bottom edge of this high volume node, into this previous lows and our next daily level, 51,720. So lows of this week and the 50 moving average are very, very important to keep track of. If we go on the hourly chart, so here you can see last week we were putting in this descending triangle formation, which we finally broke down on Monday. And you can notice on Monday immediately, as soon as we broke down, we turned all these lows from Thursday, Friday last week into resistance. The first major target was pretty much a fill of this breakout area from 2 weeks ago, and we ended up closing that level here on Monday. And if I zoom in just on this week's profile, you can see we established a pretty large high volume node from Monday until Thursday. We had this impulsive breakdown, and we ended up turning this low volume node area to resistance, forming another weekly high volume node. We broke down from this, and then we ended up recovering here on Friday, holding this as support again, 53,078, and then we ended up breaking above. And so far we can't really tell if we are holding or not, but I do think we have the potential here to hold this large bottom edge of this node from the week as support, similarly to just how we did over here as well. So bullish scenario for next week is we hold this into Asia and we recover above this daily level, and then we would be pushing up here. Let me mark off this hourly. So we would push into this 53,588, the highs from Thursday, and then the highs from Monday and Wednesday, 53,784. So pretty much very well delineated areas that we are working with. One distribution, two distribution. So we want to hold this and continue to push into the next targets right there. Very clear levels there. If we have a strong breakdown here, then I'm looking to start trading into this nodes range. 53,078, the first target, and then obviously below that would be 52,800, the lows of the week, where we definitely really want to hold this area. Because if I zoom out, if we lose the lows that we made this week, I think, there's not a lot of structure support here until about the 52,127, which was this big pullback support right over here. So major area of support at the lows. If I squish this here, you can see this top edge. If we lose this level, then we're having this next low volume node support all the way down here. So very key not to lose these lows to be able to sustain a bounce. Bitcoin, amazing wick for Bitcoin. If we zoom in, I've talked for weeks and weeks about this 65,700 level. Look how big of a resistance this was. Support, then resistance. And we've broken out. We have just under 1 day to close off this weekly candle. Next target, obviously, this swing high, 82,814. And then after that would be the lows right here around 86,000. Okay, we do need to be aware that with this impulsive move, we do have the potential for a backfill all the way back here. Okay, daily, I've marked off this fixed range profile from this consolidation here all the way on this channeling formation before the continuation lower, and then all this accumulation from February up until now. So that is this profile here. And so you can see we've had this really great breakout. The target when we were consolidating here, all I wanted was first a break above this equal highs and to fill into this little cluster, this impulsive breakdown. We did just that right into 72,445 and then continuing higher into 79,500, which you can see was this big high volume node edge, resistance, resistance, support, and now back to resistance. So above this, 82,379, this highs here. This was the last time we retested the 200 moving average. Here you can see we tested the moving average Wednesday, used it as support Thursday, and then the continuation, okay? And then above this highs, 86,411, which was this big support before the breakdown, okay? But now, as I mentioned, we need to be aware that we can pull back. We do have this big high volume node. Let me draw it better. This high volume node here, this here. So 75,000s, next low volume node support area on this little edge here. So this is our first area of support. Below that, 72,400s, major daily level of support. And then below, we have the 200 moving average, and then the breakout zone, 65,700 into this highs, 66,900s, okay? But ideally, I want to see this hold in these areas, and I don't want to see any breakdowns below these 72,000s to sustain this momentum, and we want to see just continued break and retest for higher targets. The hourly, if we just look at this week's volume profile for the week, wait for this to load. So you can see just pretty thin volumes because we had just such a impulsive move. But here we have our higher time frame profiles right over here. And so first area I've talked about, the 75,000s, then 72,000s major daily support. Below that, 69,800 big hourly level here from Wednesday, Thursday on this breakout. And then below that, we have this major area here, the 2 daily level highs. 1, 2, no backtest, yes, fresh level. And then the 65,700, which is right at the bottom edge of this node. We're overall looking very, very bullish. Finishing off with silver, looking at the CME futures. Weekly, just like gold, very nice impulsive move that we've had in the last few weeks, and especially on this week. Daily levels here, the low of Wednesday, pretty much right at this previous area, which has had a lot of confluences all the way from back into March, and right here. So that was the back test there, and then we had this area of resistance from the previous weeks, broke out on Wednesday, backtest Thursday, and continuation. So now, very clear target into this cluster of resistance, and then above that we have this order block right here. If I just highlighted order block daily right there. So target now would be this area here, and 200 moving average. Huge amount of confluences in this area. Major low volume node, daily level, daily order block, gap here, and 200 moving average. So all eyes are going to be on this range right here as the target into next week. If we go on the hourly and wait for the weekly profiles to load, here you can see this week, Monday, Tuesday, we started trading right into this range from the previous week. Tuesday into Wednesday, we had this breakdown, and then right into the New York session, big impulsive move, and then we flipped this low volume node zones back into support for this big Wednesday, the big breakout day. We broke above all these highs from last week, from Monday, Tuesday, back tested as support, and then Thursday, we established 67.42 in Asia, Europe as resistance, and then clean breakout, no back test yet, so this is a fresh hourly level. So going into next week, we have large low volume node support right over here. So 68 down into 67.42. This general area is major support for any pullbacks. If we have a strong break below 67.42 right here, then I would look to flip this as resistance for a move into the 66, and then below that 64's major low volume node support coming from earlier into this week. And then to the upside, if I zoom all the way back out, let's go into the 4 hours so it's easier to see. you can see very clear resistance at the highs this week at 70. And if we go all the way back into June, we had this little high volume node cluster before this big breakdown. So I want to see a strong hourly close above 70 and then look to start trading in this range again. Any pullbacks into 70 hold as support, targeting 71.84 daily level and this highs here from back in June as the next daily target, and 73.63 as the next hourly target. So looking at this on the hourly, you can see highs of week. We want to flip this to support and then very clear target up there. And again, on any pullbacks, very strong support area here. In fact, let me adjust this low volume node support down there. Okay, so any pullbacks into the green zone, this is where I expect our first major support. If I grab a Fibonacci and mark off the retracements, right here you can see this zone would be right into the 0.50 to the 6180 golden ratio area as well for confluence. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Again, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, code PABT for the best futures prop firm discounts on the top firms that you see on the screen right over there. And we will see you next week for more live streams, educational videos, and analysis. Take care.